Huh, when did we get a kitchen? It's a pretty nice kitchen, actually, for never being used. I think I know just what to do with this place. Greetings, brothers and princesses, to Watroponia, and welcome to In the Rift Kitchen, the show where I look at boys from across the fandom, analyze their OCs, and try to create a delicious cuisine based off their personality and OC designs. And today, for the very first episode of this show, we're going to be looking at the Golden Fox, aka the Phoenix Burger, which starts with this delicious boneless ribeye. You can get it with bones, but I recommend paying the little extra for the boneless because we're actually going to be butchering this. But before we do, we gotta make sure this is soft and tender by tenderizing it. And the best way to do that without making a mess is to put plastic wrap over it on the top and on the bottom and wrapping it very loosely. Now to get your tenderizing hammer, or you can use a frying pan if you don't have one of these. And now you get to reenact every sick fantasy of you being in The Godfather and beating this thing like it owes you money. Just keep whacking this thing all over and make sure you get every single area, otherwise you're gonna end up with areas that are far more chewy than the rest of it. Also make sure you get both sides. Typically butchers will tenderize it for you beforehand, but this is just a precaution because we want this to be as soft as possible for the burger. Alright, now that that's all done, we're gonna take it over to the frying pan and fry this sucker up. Being sure to season it with some freshly cracked black pepper and some nice kosher salt. You're gonna want to sear this on a high to medium high heat for about 5 minutes on each side, monitoring it fairly carefully so you don't burn it. And I know that sounds like a very short amount of time to do this for, but this is actually not where it's going to be finished cooking, so don't worry about it. So why are we doing this? Well, it's to not only give it a nice, more pleasing color, but it's also to introduce some smoky flavor to it. And again, when it's flipped, don't forget to season it with salt and pepper. And I mean really season it. This is a big cut of steak. Don't be worried about over seasoning because there's a good chance you'll be fine. Once it's got a nice smoky color to it, take it off the frying pan and let it cool down for a couple minutes. And while that cools down, we're going to prepare our other toppers for this sandwich. Those toppers being fried jalapenos and sriracha mayo. Yeah, you can get it pre-bought, but what's the fun in that? You can have much more control over how spicy you really want this sandwich by making it yourself. Not to mention it's easier to make your own than just paying the extra. For every cup of mayo, just add in 1/4 cup to 1/2 cup of sriracha depending on how spicy you want it. And if you really want to light that fire underneath your butt later, go ahead and add some chili garlic paste. Only a little bit though, because this stuff is way hotter than the sriracha. Then if you want, you can add any other seasonings you want to the mayo. I went with garlic powder, onion powder, and of course salt and pepper. Then just take your spoon and mix this bad boy up. Now that we got sriracha mayo, let's move on to fried jalapenos, which of course starts with jalapenos. How'd you know? Chop off both ends and then you're gonna de-seed them, which is a very simple process. Just cut it in half and then slide your knife right down the center, cutting off the 4 prongs. I completely forgot to get a shot of me showing how to actually do this, so just trust me, look at the jalapeno and you'll see what I mean. Then once it's cut, take your knife and slowly scoop it out and tapping it to get any seeds out. I know some of you might be calling blasphemy as that's the most spicy part of the jalapeno, but trust me, it was a nightmare when I tried to do it with the seeds. The seeds got everywhere. Oh, and also for the record, I'm being stupid right now, so don't do what I do. Make sure you wear rubber gloves when dealing with peppers. That is unless of course you enjoy your privates being dipped in hellfire. Then of course we slice them into nice even rings, almost like they're pickles. Then once you got these all set up, we're gonna take this over to the oven. Then get yourself a nice pot and fill it up with some vegetable oil. Then set it to high heat and let that warm up. While that's happening, we gotta prepare our dipping stations, which is gonna be a standard 3-pronged dipping station consisting of eggs, flour, and panko breadcrumbs, which is gonna do a standard egg, flour, egg, panko, and then dip method. Depending on the size of the pot, you might be able to get them all in there like I was able to. Once they're all in there, get yourself a nice metal spatula and make sure to agitate them so they don't stick together. Also making sure to flip them over so they get evenly cooked on both sides. Once they're done, check them to see if they're a nice golden brown, then put them on a paper towel lined plate. But don't shuffle your oil just yet because we're gonna need it for the steak. But first, our steak's cooled down, so now we're gonna go ahead and butcher this. Get yourself a nice sharp butcher's knife and cut this baby up. You're gonna want to cut it into 1" by 1" cubes. You can also cut it like strips if you want, that's entirely up to you, but I went with cubes. Now that they're all cubed up, it's time for the breading process with these bad boys. Once again, we're gonna use panko breadcrumbs, only this time, we're gonna add a couple more things to this. Those things being a tablespoon of red pepper flakes, a tablespoon of cayenne pepper, and a light sprinkling of garlic and onion powder. Using the same method as before, after we beat those eggs nice and well, you're gonna want to dip dip it in the eggs, then the flour, and then the panko. Also, if you want to avoid a big headache, make sure you use one hand for eggs and one hand for the dry ingredients. It'll prevent your hands from being a gooey, mushy, breadcrumby mess. In fact, just to prove my point, I kind of forgot to do this halfway through, and as such, this is what happened to my hands. So yeah, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and quickly wash these off, and then we're gonna go over to our preheated oil. Set it to about a medium-high setting. Then very carefully drop the steak in, making sure not to burn yourself. Then let those cook, and using a pair of tongs, check the underside to see if it's nice and crispy, and then do that for the other side. Then once again, same as before, put them on a paper towel lined plate. This should take about no more than 15 to 20 minutes, maybe a little less depending on how high you have it. But if you want to be extra safe, don't forget your heat thermometer. Alright, my stomach is now thoroughly grumbling after being exposed to this steak being fried up, so now let's assemble this burger already. Get yourself a nice artisan bun or a pretzel bun and make sure you toast it beforehand. Now to start with assembly, starting by putting a nice spread of sriracha mayo on both sides. I used a teaspoon, but you can use as much or as little as you want. Then go ahead and gingerly place that steak on. Then we're gonna go ahead and use some shredded jalapeno cheese. I know I can use slices, but actually shredded cheese melts faster than slices. And we're kind of relying on the heat of the steak to melt it. And then finally plate this baby up with our fried jalapenos. Then finally take the other half and you've got it nice and assembled. I like to press that down, but that's up to you. And your hours of hard work have finally paid off with the Golden Fox. And as you can see, I also have some wasabi fries with it. I'll teach you how to make that over on my Patreon, but first let's get a nice little cross section going. I'm just needlessly showboating at this point, so let's just dig in already. And I gotta say guys, this was actually pretty freaking tasty. It wasn't nearly as spicy as I was expecting, and I think that's a good thing, otherwise it would have been too powerful. In fact, it was so tasty I completely cleaned my plate and even got seconds. I would say this definitely shines as bright as Golden Fox's Phoenix mark. I'm the Watcher Pony saying bon appetit my bronies. See you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching the very first episode of this series. This is an idea I've had for quite some time now, and I'm happy to finally see it come out. And rest assured, there's gonna be more of this to come, trust me. However, if you want to help me support this monetarily and maybe get this out sooner, there's always my Patreon. Even so much as $1 a month can not only get you exclusive videos and early access, but also a personal thank you from me at the end of every video. Of course, donating more a month can get you stuff like access to my Discord server, as well as the ability to vote on what my Patreon sponsored video of that month is gonna be. Thank you all so much for watching, and happy eating, my bronies.